guys, my name is Emily and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing the 2024 book and review, reading wrap up, whatever you want to call it. Basically, I'm going to be talking to you guys about every single book that I read in the year 2024. In this video, I'm going to be telling you what I rated the books and giving like a short little summary or like what I thought of the books. And last year I read 28 books total, so I'm going to be diving into 28 books, so hopefully you can find some recommendations or, you know, just if you want to know my thoughts about these books, then that's what you'll find in this video. Being said, let's just go ahead and get started right away. So the first book that I read this year was Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson, and this is a book that was assigned for me for school, and it's basically just about the criminal justice system. And as you will notice by like the rest of my books that I talk about in this list, this is not really like the type of books that I like to read. I like to read like lighthearted romance, like basically romance and like little stories like that. And so this just isn't really the type of book that I like to read. Plus it was written like so highly. This is for an AP class that I was assigned this book, so it was really hard to comprehend and understand. So I just gave it like 3 stars. Like I couldn't really understand it that well, but it was still like a good story. The next book that I read was Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan, and this is about a small town boy named Archer who is mute, and the community is trying to figure out like why is he mute, because they remember when he was a kid he was not like that, and then one day he became mute, and so we're learning about like what happened and why. And he also meets this girl named Bree, and she's really the first one that like understands him and kind of sympathizes with him and is nice to him in this like community where everybody is not very nice to him. This is like just a good story, and it takes place in a small town, and it's just like really good. And I gave this book 4 stars. The next book that I read was Magnolia Parks, and I started and finished this series in 2024, which was like really good. That was an accomplishment. And this book is like something that I've never read before. Basically this is about all of these high lifes in London and just how they interact with each other and all the different relationships that are formed between all of them. This is very much like very toxic. All the relationships, both the friendships and like the relationships that happen in this book are very toxic, and there's just not very good communication, but it's like something I've never read before. This is more of a character study. It basically just takes place in each character's life instead of like having like a distinct plot that each of the books are following. But this one is really focusing on Magnolia and BJ, who are my favorite couple in the series. And so this was pretty good. This is the first book in the series, and I gave it 4 stars. This was like my second favorite book in the series, I would say. Then right after finishing Magnolia Parks, I jumped into the next book in the series, which was Daisy Haites. And I have a love-hate relationship with this book. Personally, I like Magnolia and BJ stories better than like the Daisy and Christian stories. But again, this follows the same like little universe as Magnolia Parks, but this follows 2 new characters, Daisy and Christian. But Magnolia is like mentioned in here. They interact a little bit, but this is pretty much kind of separate. This book put me into a slump. It took me like 3 months to read this book, but at the end, you know, it kind of picked up, and it was just really building the characters. But again, I like Magnolia and BJ's better, so I gave this book a 3.5. Then after that, I read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This follows Jeanette McCurdy, who was a Nickelodeon child actor, and it talks about everything that she went through in child acting and with her mother and just a bunch of stuff. She had a really rough childhood, and so she talked about it and really wrote about what happened and kind of shed light on everything. I didn't really rate it because it's nonfiction, it's just like a memoir, so I didn't really think there was much to rate, but overall it was really good and I recommend. After that, I read The Nanny by Lana Ferguson, and this story is interesting. Basically it takes place between our 2 characters, Aiden and Cassie, and Cassie loses her job and she's looking for a new job, and she comes across Aiden, who needs a nanny for his daughter. And Cassie used to run an OnlyFans account, and Aiden was her #1 fan on OnlyFans, and it takes them both a while to figure out who they are. Cassie figures out first that Aiden is the one that is her secret admirer on OnlyFans, I think, or maybe Aiden, I can't remember which one figures out first, but one of them knows first, and then yeah, they just kind of go from there. This book is like interesting, you know, I don't know, it's not really my favorite thing because it's like mostly spice, so I found myself skipping through a lot of it, and I don't know what I expected, but going into it I didn't expect it to be as spicy, but it was. That's just not really what I like. So I ended up giving it a 3 star. Next is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I ended up rating this one a 4.5 stars. This follows our 2 main characters, Emma and Justin, and basically Justin one day feels that he has a curse because every time that he dates a girl and then they break up, that girl goes and finds her like soulmate. And so he goes to Reddit and posts about this dilemma that he's in, and Emma sees it and is like, oh my gosh, the same thing happens to me. Like every time that I date someone, they go and find their true love. So they decide that what if they come together and date each other, and then they break up so that they can go off and find their one true love. And I don't know, I feel like you can guess where it's going from there, but also you can't. Like, there's so many other things that happen in this book aside from just that main storyline. It talks about a lot of different topics and issues. It was just really well done, and just for some reason I did not get that 5-star feeling when I was reading, but I still really enjoyed it, so I give it a 4.5 star. After that, I dove back into the Magnolia Parks universe, and I picked up Magnolia Parks The Long Way Home. This is when the book started to get thick. Like, let's see how many pages. This one is over 587 pages, so yeah, it's getting thick. But this was my first 5-star read of the year, and this was my favorite book in the Magnolia Parks series. Basically, I can't say too much because it's just like the third book in a series, but it continues on with BJ and Magnolia's story, and we find out more about their past and really what like issues they have been dealing with in their life and why kind of the relationship is so toxic. And the ending of this book, shook. After that, I started really diving into my Kindle. This is when I bought a Kindle, and then all these next books I kind of read on Kindle Unlimited. So the first one was The Teacher by Frida McFadden. I ended up giving it, I think, 4 stars. Oh, I rated it 5 stars, but I'm gonna bump it down to 4.5. Basically, this book follows a teacher and his student and, like, you know, just some weird things. But the fact that it's Frida McFadden, you're always on the edge of your seat. You never know what's going to happen next. And it's just super good. And I would recommend the turn at the end. I can never guess. And that goes for all Frida books. I never know what's happening at the end. But it was pretty good. And I would definitely recommend it. It's a book that you can go through pretty quick. All of her books are. And yeah, it was pretty good. Next, I read The Housemaid by Frida McFadden, and again, 5 stars. I read it in one day, one sitting, and I've never done that for a book before. Crazy, always leaving you on the edge of your seat. So good. And then after that, I read The Housemaid Secret, which is the second book. Also gave that a 5 star, super good, and it's just a continuation of the first. And then I read The Housemaid Is Watching, which is the third, and I believe I gave that one a 4.5 star. Yeah, I gave that one a 4.5 star. It just wasn't quite as good as the other two, but it was still super good. And anything by Frida McFadden, I'm probably going to rate pretty high because they're such page turners and they really get me locked in, and that's what I'm looking for in a book. Then I read The Summer of Broken Rules, also on my Kindle, and this follows a town and basically, not a town, a family. And the sister of the main character dies, and then they go to a wedding, and in honor of her, they decide that they're going to play a game of assassin, which is like her sister's favorite thing, and she was the best at it. And so they all play assassin, and there's like new characters that come to town that kind of spark a romance, and it's just, you know, super good. A really like nice summer read. I read this like by the beach over the summer, and I ended up rating it a 3.75 star. There's nothing like crazy because it was young adult, and so I don't know, I tend to not like those as much, but it was still pretty good, and so I gave it a 3.75. Then I read Daisy Haites The Great Undoing, which is the next little like installment in the Daisy Haites universe. Again, Magnolia and BJ I do prefer a little bit more, but this was still pretty good, and I ended up rating it a I ended up rating it a 4 star. And then I read The Coworker by Frida McFadden. This was also on my Kindle, and again, this is a little like psychological thriller mystery. We're trying to figure out who killed the main character's coworker and like what happened, and it was good. Another really good Frida McFadden book. This one wasn't quite as good as the other ones. I rated this one a 3.5 star just because, I don't know, I feel like, I don't know, obviously it didn't give me that 5 star feeling, and then it went down because sometimes it was just kind of dragging on towards the middle, which is something that I don't normally see in her books, but maybe it's because I was kind of overdoing them. I've taken a break from her for a while, and I'm really excited to dive back into her in 2025 and see more of her books. But The Coworker I rated a 3.5 star. Then I read What We Keep by Jennifer Milliken, and this is a firefighter romance. But it's, you know, I kind of expected going into it that it was going to be like a little cheesy firefighter romance, but it was not. It was so much more than that. It was so much deeper, and it rooted in a lot of heavy topics. Basically, these two people get married, and then their marriage starts to fall apart, and they have to kind of work together to figure out what are they going to do. What is the best solution? They have lots of tragedy strike and just different things that really affected their marriage. And overall, I feel like the way it was done was super, super good. I ended up rating it a 4.75 just because, again, for some reason, I did not get that 5 star feeling, but I was so, so close to getting it. Then I read The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden. I was reading it because it was one of her new releases, and everyone was talking about it, and I gave it a 3.5 stars. Again, not my favorite. It was just, the ending was good. Like, the ending I did not guess, and it really left me, like, speechless. But throughout the book, it kind of just dragged on, and I don't know, it just wasn't my favorite from her. Then I read my favorite book of the year, The Last Letter. 5 stars, 6 stars, infinite number of stars. This book is so good. My favorite book of the year. Low-key one of the favorite books I've ever read in my life. So, so good. This book follows Beckett and Ella. Those are our two main characters. And Beckett is away because he's in the military. And so he's stationed, and Ella is writing him letters because Beckett is stationed with Ella's brother. And so when Ella's brother dies, and leaves like a note to Beckett saying that he needs to take care of her. Let me just read you the note that he wrote. He said, Beckett, if you're reading this, well, you know the last letter, Joe. You made it, I didn't. Get off the guilt train, because I know if there was any chance you could have saved me, you would have. I need one thing from you. Get out of the army and get to Telluride. My little sister Ella's raising the twins alone. She's too independent and won't accept help easily, but she has lost our grandmother, our parents, and now me. It's too much for anyone to endure. It's not fair. And here's the kicker. There's something else you don't know that's tearing her family apart. She's going to need help. So if I'm gone, that means I can't be there for Ella. I can't help them through this, but you can. So I'm begging you as my best friend, go take care of my sister, my family. Please don't make her go through it alone. Brian. He goes and takes care of the family, and I don't know, there's just so many like heartbreaking things. This book made me sob, and I've never cried over a book before. 5 stars. It made me feel all the emotions. Could not stop reading it. I just want to know what happens next. So good. Best book ever. Read it right now. Then I read The Housemaid Is Watching, and this is like the little novella. I think it's like considered 2.5, like you're supposed to read it between the second and the third book, but I read it right when it got released. And you know, it was like 60 pages. It was super short. There wasn't much to it, but I ended up rating it like a 2.5, 3 star, I think. Then I read Divine Rivals, and this follows Roman and Iris, and they're 2 journalists for a popular like magazine that is in their little world. And basically Iris's brother goes to war, and she starts writing to him through her magical typewriter, but the typewriter messages are getting retrieved by Roman instead. And Roman is her like enemy at her job. And it's so much more than that. There's world building, there's war, there's all this, and this little fantasy. And normally I'm not a big fan of fantasies, but I would say this is more like magical realism, but also fantasy. I'm not sure. Super good. I rated it 4 stars, and I'm super excited to get into Ruthless Vows. Then I read My December Darling by Lauren Asher, and this is just a little holiday novella. It was nothing special, and honestly I expected it to be way better. I ended up rating it 3 stars because really, besides the fact that it took place in the month of December, there was very little like Christmas elements, and that's really what I was looking for, but that's not what I got. So 3 stars it is. And I read my most disappointing read of the year, Magnolia Parks Into the Dark. I've heard so many amazing things about this. Everyone's hyping it up, saying 5 star, favorite book of the year, all this stuff. And obviously, as you guys know, Magnolia and BJ are my favorite parts of the series, and I love them. But this book, I think it was just so intimidating. It's so thick. I could not get through it. And I was like trying, and then I downloaded it on my Kindle and tried that. I finally had to download the audiobook, and then that got me through it. But I don't know. I mean, it was still good. Like, it's the 4th book in a series, or no, the 5th book. Like, it's obviously gonna be good. I've connected with these characters. I've connected with this world, and so I had to finish this out. But it was just a little bit of a struggle. But once I got there, I did not regret it. And I'm glad that I finished this series, because I really wanted to finish this in 2024, like start and finish it. And so I ended up giving this book like a 4.25. And yeah, that's really how I feel about it. Then I read like 3 of the little novella holiday series on Kindle Unlimited. So it was Cruel With You by Allie Hazelwood, Mary Ever After by Tessa Bailey, and All By Myself by Olivia Dade. These were nothing special. The highest one I gave was like 3 stars. They were just little Christmas novellas, but honestly they weren't that good. Then I read The Holiday Honeymoon Switch by Julie McKay, and I read this book of 4 stars. This takes place between our 2 best friends, Holly Beach and Ivy Casey. Holly's fiance leaves her, and then she is stuck with this non-refundable honeymoon vacation, but she cannot go because she just feels like it's gonna remind her too much of the relationship. So she sends Ivy to go, and so Ivy goes there, and then Ivy is supposed to be going on a retreat to the woods to like work on her art, but she sends Holly. So basically they just switch trips, and so much more happens. But it was just a super cute little Christmas read, romance, super good, perfect for like December time. So I gave it a 4 stars. Okay, we're almost done. We got just a couple more books, 2 more books. So the next book is Beartown. Again, 5-star read, so good. Basically this follows Beartown, which is a hockey town. They're run by the hockey. Everybody loves hockey there, whatever. Basically something happens with the town, like they get into this tragedy, it strikes the town, and now they are left with making decisions. They don't know what they should do. Basically it just dabbles on a bunch of different issues of like power and all of that, and like how being a hockey town impacts the town in general, and how when something happens, how that affects everyone, and how just the dynamics of a small town, like I don't know, there's so much that goes on, and it's just super good, and it goes with a lot of different issues and topics. It goes about it really well, and 5 stars. Love it so much. The last book I read this year was If You Had Been With Me by Lauren Nolan. You know, I'm sure that this book has been trending everywhere. I've been seeing it so much on TikTok, and everybody loves it, and I gave it a 4.5 stars. It was super good. People always say that it gets them really emotional and they cried. Personally, I didn't. I think it's because I kind of assumed what was going to happen because of all the spoilers I've been seeing, which is kind of unfortunate. So I ended up giving it a 4.5 stars because I just didn't really get that 5-star feeling, but it was a super good read, and I'm excited to read it if only I had told her, probably in February. That was all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please make sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!